Hi, everybody. Okay, let's get started, I guess. So, raise your hand if you've ever been to Tim Hortons in the last week. Mm-hmm. Good. Okay, great. I didn't think I would have to explain what Tim Hortons is, as it's probably the most recognizable brand in Canada. But let me take you there. You're standing in a line waiting to order. You're checking the ingredients, trying to decide if something is healthier than something else. And then you just stop caring and you order a Boston cream and a double-double because it's actually what you want. You pay cash. You get your change back and you're faced with a question. Do you keep that change or do you put it in that weird box that says Tim Hortons Camp? Never. Fair enough. This is going to make the rest of the story really fun. It would be an easier decision to make if you knew what Tim Hortons Camp is. Is it a real camp? Are the kids real? Is Tim Hortons Camp just a place where people chug coffee under a bridge? I don't know. We'll never know. Wrong. I am here today to tell you that I, Freddy Rivas, am a Tim Hortons Camp alum. No worries. It's funny, when I think about Tim Hortons Camp, it all happened in a vacuum. Going to Tim Hortons Camp isn't exactly a source of pride. I mean, you basically have to be poor to go. You can't share that you went to Tim Hortons Camp with your friends without having to also talk about the fact that your family was so poor that you were invited to Tim Hortons Camp. I think that's why you don't hear much about Tim Hortons Camp, and quite often, people don't even know what it is. I've never met anyone else who attended camp. With my very little knowledge of math, that just can't be true. I'm sure I've met people who've actually been to that camp. So, back to the decision about what to do with your change. I can't tell you ethically whether or not you should donate to the Tim Hortons Camp or to the Tim Hortons Children's Foundation. However, I can paint the picture of a child's experience at Tim Hortons Camp using the snapshot of my own memories. How did I get to go? Well, my 3 brothers and I all had big brothers. One year, the Big Brothers Foundation had a Tim Hortons Camp lottery, and my name was drawn. Part of the Tim Hortons Camp experience is to get kids to another province to experience a different part of Canada, I guess. So this Ontario kid got to go to Banff, Alberta. Not only that, but I got to bring a friend. Only I had many brothers, so I didn't get to bring a friend. I got to bring a brother. Yay. As far as what brother got to go, things got pretty real pretty fast. Thomas was 7 at the time, so he was out. He's too young. Miguel was 10, and Francisco was 12. So it was going to be one of 2 older brothers who got to come with me. How did my family decide, you ask? An epic rock, paper, scissors, of course. It was up to 10. And Miguel had a big lead, but got stuck on 9 and eventually lost to Francisco. It was very, very dramatic. My uncle ended up flying Thomas and Miguel to BC, though, so don't worry about it. You don't need to feel sorry for them. They had a nice summer. Okay, there I am, camp bus. Everyone had a friend. I had my brother. But I did meet the coolest kid I would meet the entire trip right away. He had a necklace with a little hammer on it. And he told me people called him Hammer. Makes sense? Basically, this guy was cool as hell. So there's me, Francisco, and a cool guy named Hammer on a bus. Now we're on the plane, and counselors want our candy. They lie to us and tell us they will give it back. So, like a fool, I give them all of the Skittles and all the other goodies my mom had given to me, never to see it again. You know who didn't give up his candy? Hammer. That's who. He kept a big enough stash to basically be the candy dealer to the kids in all the camp. Like I said, this dude was cool. Okay, now we're on a bus. Bus to Calgary, then to Banff, Alberta. A bus from Calgary to Banff, Alberta. I messed it up. And we're talking to counselors. They tell us this crazy story about cowboys stealing horses from the camp, and how it's a big problem, and there's a scary outlaw, and we might encounter him on our trip. I'm from Ontario, so I literally believe every single part of this obviously very fake story. We arrive, buses from all directions, kids from everywhere in Canada. Sorry, where was I? Kids from everywhere in Canada. Sorry. Let me just find my place here. Right, okay. This is when Francisco and me got separated. It was a goodbye, but it was because of our ages, and, we couldn't be together. So the show begins. They had staged an entire horse and cowboy drama with stunts and guns, verifying the wild cowboy story from the bus. This was probably a very triggering and violent show, but I was 9 and still unsure how real it was and generally quite impressed by stunts. So I was pretty much all in. They split us into cabins. I'm with the boys my age. They split us again into rooms of 4, so I make sure to go with Hammer and his friend. Sleepovers were always a little bit tricky for me because I was a bedwetter. So I legit had to bring diapers to camp. Of course, I wet the bed on the first night, and of course, some kid catches me throwing out my diaper in the garbage. I call this kid Shoe, but we'll get to him later. He starts to make fun of me, and I'm basically dead inside. Then, just in the nick of time, Hammer walks in the main area of the cabin and tells everyone it's no big deal that I wet the bed, and it's actually kind of cool that I don't even care about it. I for sure did care about it, but also thanks, Hammer. Then, camp's off. We did archery, which is really cool because I happened to be the best at it, and we were shooting arrows in the woods, which was awesome. Horseback riding up a mountain. I remember feeling very sorry for the horses at the time. They put me on a small horse that seemed tired, and the counselors kept telling me I have to kick it harder and be rougher with my horse. I didn't like that and kept kissing my horse's mane. They didn't like that. The horses was cool with it, but the counselors were, what are you doing? This event culminated when a kid's horse was stung by a bee and bolted up the mountain. My horse and all the other horses that had gentle owners took off after the bee-stung horse. Very scary. But we were rewarded with the freshest water from a river that I've ever tasted in my whole life. We all immediately grabbed cups and dipped it in the river and just chugged like water after water after water. But what we didn't realize was with fresh water like that, it will immediately give you the shits. So I was one of the lucky kids who made it to a outhouse, so that was great. But a lot of kids shit their pants that day. Yeah. We went camping in bear-infested woods, which is pretty cool. The counselors tried to scare us by rattling our tents and unzipping them with a big bear glove that they, for some reason, had. I didn't wake up, so I didn't get traumatized, which was nice. But I did forget my diaper, and I pissed all over the tent. So there's that. And the counselors had to deal with that, so that's on them. We went whitewater rafting. We were instructed to hold onto the paddle if we went overboard. The only kid who did go overboard immediately tossed his paddle high in the air, and we left him for dead, I guess. The counselors said he would be fine, but we all thought he was a goner. Oddly enough, we went back to our cabin, and he was already there waiting for us. Apparently, the American military was conducting something around the area and found him. We were given no further information. One day, I was taken from my cabin because something happened to my brother Francisco, and they asked me to keep him company. When I found him, he was excited to show me what happened. There was a giant blister that covered the entire sole of his foot. It looked horrifying, but he thought it was funny, and I hung out with him while he slowly popped it. So, brothers. I also remember seeing a kid who didn't bring chapstick, and his lips were so chapped that he had an upper third lip. It looked very painful. Okay, that's it for the weird, gross portion of my memories. We also went rock climbing. About 15 feet up, I bumped my knee, and I got stuck. A hero counselor climbed up the rope and saved me. I cried pretty hard, but I was very impressed, and everybody cheered me down, which was really cool. Lining up for things was a big part of Tim Hortons camp. One time while waiting in a line, a kid butted in front of me, and I let him hear all about it. He calmly listened to me, removed his shoe, put the shoe on his right hand, and punched me in the face with it. My nose started bleeding, and I remember crying, but also deciding that I wasn't going to tell on him because I felt like something was going on with him that was much worse than my bloody nose. He will forever remain in my memory as Shu. Shu, if you're listening, I really hope everything worked out, man. And it's all good. It was camp, so we all had nicknames. Mine was Frog for some reason. Midway through the camp, I found out that the girl who I thought was very pretty also had the nickname Frog. The connection was instant. We passed notes through our counselors and slow danced on the final night. It would be understandable if all you were wondering, hey, Freddy, do you donate to the camp? What do I think every time I see that box and hold that change in my hand? I'm glad that Tim Hortons has that box there. I know Tim Hortons isn't the most ethical company, and they certainly have questionable business practices. But I am glad that they have this camp, and I'm even more glad they have this little change box for your donations. Because so often as a kid, you forget these small memories of camp or summer or travel or the mundane hilarity of childhood. But because of that little box, each time I grab a double-double or a cream cheese bagel, I throw some change in. And with each quarter I throw in, I get the chance to remember. I think it's why I have so many little camp memories. It's been a personal memory box for me. But I also know that when I throw some change in that box, it's going to a real place. It's a chance for some little Hammer or Freddy or even a little Shu to create their own memories. I really hope one day that I'll get to hear other people's memories about Tim Hortons Camp. Thank you, everybody.